should be, try to stick to the timing as much as we can. If people join late, not a big issue, because the session is being recorded. And for those ones that may have missed it entirely because of busy agendas, feel free. You can always look at this with a bit of a time delay as well online. So again, welcome everyone to this Secure Together on Air event. This is one of the very first events that we do online as a succession to some of the events that we've been doing in person. And I do have here with me today two great experts in the industry that will introduce themselves as well. But quick note from my side, my name's Ivan. I'm today's host. I'm CTO at SecurityBridge, and what I do day to day is I work on a security platform. So I'm here to represent one of the two solutions that we will talk about today. Martin, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Ivan. Yeah, I'm a product manager at Microsoft, and I focus on SAP security. And among this is also co-engineering with SAP, and obviously also interesting partners like SecurityBridge, and handing it over to Accenture, one of the partners, also breathing life into this partnership.
Thanks, Martin. So hello, everyone. So I'm Usama Bensat. I'm a security consulting manager at Accenture from the platform security team with expertise in SAP cybersecurity. Let's say more with the deep knowledge in the area of threat detection, vulnerability management. Yeah, so looking forward to a great session with Ivan and Martin.
Excellent. We not only have two amazing brands with us, it's actually two amazing people that know their job quite well, I have to say. I've been working with both gentlemen since a long while. A quick note before we actually going to deep dive into the topic. As I said in the introduction, this is a virtual event, but we also run a number of physical events. And the very first one, I know I want to use the first few minutes to make a bit of advertisement. Now that everyone still has, we still have their full attention. The very first event is going to be in Copenhagen, as a prequel to the SAP Insider event. Shortly after, we're going to move over to Singapore. And we are traveling the globe, so also in November, you will find us in Sydney, and exactly one day later, I have no idea how to do that travel-wise, but we're going to end up in New York. So as you can see, it's going to be a very busy schedule for the remainder of the year. But if you want to meet one of us, please do not hesitate to join one of those physical events.
Now, maybe they're taking the space shuttle there, Ivan, to be faster.
Exactly. But, honestly, I was at that event and I can tell you it doesn't fly anymore. It's kind of static. So now let's deep dive into the actual topic. And let's start off with, talking about the challenge of manual compliance checks. Because, as the title says, we're supposed to say, save about 60% of time and effort. And I was actually challenged by my own CRO who said, it's actually more than 100%. So that's going to be very difficult to motivate in an online session to convey that message. But Usama, I think you guys have been doing a lot of these assessments and audits. So what is your experience?
Yeah, so I think we are here for a reason. I think there is a problem that we kind of want to explore how to fix, which is like the manual compliance check. So there are like couple of challenges. I think there are many of them. I just try to bring the four bigger challenges that we face when we do kind of compliance checks. So at Accenture, we usually are asked or approached by our clients to do pre-audit checks. So we're not auditors. We not act in this area. So our clients reach out to us. They are preparing for an external audit, and they want to do a pre-audit checks to make sure that they are closing the gaps before the external auditor is coming, and that they successfully then succeed or the audit. So on the right-hand side of the slide, you see those are actual results from some pre-audit checks. We call them as Accenture security assessments or health checks with the different findings, different compliance. So we usually always try to adapt the control frameworks that the auditor is using to the areas that we gonna explore in the pre-audit check. So let's go back to the problem. What are the challenges of the compliance check? So first thing is if you do it manually, then it's also highly time intensive. That means that especially when you have complex SAP landscapes, and I would think now we're not only talking anymore about like ABAP systems, we also want to see the compliance of other cloud applications like success factors, like BTP also becoming a topic. So doing it manually, if you have also a large landscape, seen clients with more than 50 productive systems. So can imagine doing it like manually, probably not something that's gonna be possible. Second thing is also like the inaccuracies. So when you do it manually, like mostly there will be Excel involved, will be Excel formulas. Missing something might just like be an issue for the accuracy of the audit. The third one is also as related to the highly time intensive is also the limited scalability. As I said, like once we grow, like once your SAP landscape is getting bigger and bigger, you can imagine doing the same check without automation in 50 systems. So this is probably something I would say from experience not possible at all. And the last point that we also like see an issue when like doing a manual compliance check. So you check the system at a certain point manually, and that's it. You don't know how it is in the next month. So you need again to do all this effort and go through all this pain again to get like a screenshot or a snapshot of the compliance of your systems manually.
Yeah, but Osama, the thing is, I've been reading a little bit on your slides here, and what really strikes me is, on the top right corner, you see compliance rate 33% for the area of user management, user and authorization management, which is actually typically an area where a lot of SAP customers are really focusing on since the early days. That's the main reason you've got identity management and GRC controls, etc. How can it be that for something which is audit relevant, that the compliance ratio is so low?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the first thing is still in what's like also what I've seen when like doing these pre-audit checks, that most of the controls also are still going in the direction of users and authorization management. So there will be like a higher number of controls in this area, which means that's also the probability that non-compliances is also kind of higher. I think we're gonna probably like deep dive a bit also into it in one of examples that I want to present, like a use case. And we know that SecurityBridge also, I think, bring in more than 60, 70 use cases just for users and authorization management. And the problem is that clients still like focus on some, let's say, high level use cases of critical authorizations, but they still kind of deprioritize some others, especially when we go deep dive into the technical area, like we'll talk about some specific authorization objects with some specific field values. They usually tend to not prioritize that, but it's still it's important use case and important controls that you still need to be compliant with. And I think here you can see clearly that it was like one of the bigger issues or of compliances with this pre-audit check with this client. On the other hand, I would also like to point out, like for the system hardening, surprisingly it was quite good. So the client was on RISE, and many of the let's say system parameters, profile parameters, they were like coming actually still secure by default. And this is like why they had also many of the controls, let's say, compliant.
Oh, that's interesting. That means because of the SaaS model from SAP, they could check off a couple of the things automatically, yeah?
Yeah, so now there is like the RISE, there is like RISE systems are coming with secure parameters by default. Like there is a security note, you can share it also later, where you already like have what are the values for each of the system or profile parameters. So SAP delivers the system already with like those secure values. Like for example, if we're talking about password parameters, for example, it's already like the system is already delivered with, for example, a minimum length of 15. So even so, you want to change it, then you need to be non-compliant, and SAP will probably like reject this kind of change requests. Yeah, to be less secure. Than this is like at least my experience with this specific client compared to other ones that are like running their systems on-prem. They are still like struggling much more with the system hardening controls, and they are still not compliant with these type of controls. Yeah, so I think we covered now like what are the challenges of the manual checks. I think we want to hear more about like surveys, about what the professionals are saying out there about how automation of compliance check gonna help them cut effort, maybe cut fees. So tell us more, Martin.
I will, yeah. But before I go there, I also want to check what vertical or what industry were those audit checks from. You know?
Yeah.
When I look at this, dark red, yeah, and some green, some yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, both of the clients, I would say, they are operators of critical infrastructure. So one was from the energy sector, the other one from chemical industry, and yeah, so actually very critical. They are running critical infrastructures, and still there are like always a room. And but the good thing I can also say for the client with the user and authorization management compliance that of 33%. So I heard back from them a couple of months after we did the product check. So they managed to fix most of the issues and they passed the audit successfully.
That's good to hear. Yeah, so I keep my lights on then, wherever that was in EMEA. All right. Like you said, we wanted to also get to some further evidence on this. And actually, there's a Gartner report that speaks to these automation gains. Yeah? And we've linked here the survey. And actually, there were findings that customers that had more than 25% of their controls already automated had substantial efficiency gains and reduced audit fees. So, I encourage you to also challenge that and have a look at it yourself, because that's a space that's hard to quantify, because you're looking at hours, you're looking at product, and it's like a space that evolves also with the AI capabilities coming these days. Anything you want to add here, Osama, from your experience or expertise on the gains for the automation?
Yeah, I mean, also quite important, as you mentioned in here. So the higher the number of controls you have, probably then do see also the benefits of bringing automation. And I think we'll talk about automating the controls. Probably Ivan said at the beginning, try to cut the effort or cut the time by 100%. But also from my experience, I can say that there are also controls that you cannot automate. Like, for example, you need to check how the process is working, or like how policies are in place. And so there are controls that still be done like as an auditor, or like also when we do the pre-audit checks, like security assessment, we need to go through documentation and check it and see if it's like compliant and also aligning with how the control is stated. But a lot of controls, I mean, I will also like probably go more into details. So a lot of technical controls we're gonna be able to automate them.
But Osama, when I say, for me, going for a 60% reduction is just not enough, because as soon as you've got controls that are automated, speed up the amount of executions of those controls. Instead of running them every single year, you can basically run them every single day, because it's almost at a click. So.
Completely agree. And I think we have a slide also which like bring this even into more into light, how like really the automation bring you like to cut time and effort into really high percentage.
That's true, Osama. And maybe that's also one of the points for today. There's stuff that can be like a quick win that can be automated today because it's simple to do, and the harder ones require either more software or keeping the human in the loop to do it. when you have to read something or you have to like visually confirm it exists, so that you can like sign a paper or something. Yeah, we have another analyst report that we want to show that actually tries to quantify this in hours, and that's based on findings by another analyst where they say it's 2,000 hours that companies spend on average annually on compliance activity. That obviously varies across industry and company size, but still it's a considerable amount of time. And like a big chunk of that is only on documentation and reporting, which is a space that is very software intensive, which I would consider one of the areas for like simpler solutions that can be done with automation. And then they go on and say that if you implement such automations, you can save up to 50 hours for the manual compliance task, if you dedicate that effort to software. And like another angle to this, audit professionals or the internal auditors at your company collecting all of this information, this report claims that they would even save 20 minutes per day, which then adds up a lot over the course of a year and like pays forward towards the efficiency gains you can expect from such an approach. All right, then from here, over to you, Osama, again, on giving us some insights on the actual frameworks there and how to look at it.
Yeah, so basically with this slide, I want to just like to bring this like really into practice. So what are we talking about? So I wanted to bring a use case, a specific control, and bring it into light how like SecurityBridge and Microsoft gonna help first do the continuous monitoring of the compliance, and second also then real-time detection of non-compliances the time it happens. So here there are like, let's say, two topics you want to be compliant with. So this is like also what I've seen also at many of our clients. First, they have their internal ITGC. So the IT generated controls they want to be compliant with, and mostly like internal audits and also external audits are like focusing on the compliance with the ITGC framework. Second part is the information security framework. So also what I've seen at other many clients, that the information security mostly find it difficult to measure the compliance of their SAP systems or their SAP landscapes with specific information security frameworks. Here I brought the example of NIST, of ISO 27001. I've also like seen clients that are adopting, for example, the syscontrols framework as their information security framework, and they wanted to measure the compliance of their SAP landscape with these controls. So here I brought like very simple example. I think this is like probably an example that all of you are familiar with, is like related to user and access management. So here we're talking about access management. You have an ITGC control saying that privileged access appropriateness, which means that elevated systems or application access, like we're talking here about like basis access, admin rights in the ITGC words, because the ITGC is also formulated not for the SAP word, but for the all IT landscape word. Also like the same as NIST, as ISO 27001. And yeah, so this is the control. And also for NIST, you have a let's say equivalent control about access permissions and their appropriateness, how they should be managed, enforced, and reviewed. And then you have also from ISO controls, you have this example about also access to information and restriction restriction of critical authorization. So you have like these three controls. They are equivalent, and you want to check the compliance with these controls. Here comes into play then the SecurityBridge, security and compliance monitor. You have use cases. I'm naming here few examples going into this direction of access and authorizations. You have for the ABAP, you have for the Java, you have also for HANA, and also you have for the BTP. You have these use cases that can then help you automatically check whether your SAP systems, your SAP landscape is compliant with these three controls at the same time. And I think Martin from Microsoft Entra ID and Entra ID governance, it's also like the case. You can do the same and check compliance with these three controls.
Exactly. Yeah. access reviews, the entitlement, also the user lifecycle handling, yeah, from hire to retire, etc., is part of the entry governance flows these days. So you can really make sure that a user that comes in, gets assigned a role, actually gets only the dedicated roles on the SAP side also. And if he changes role, the change is enforced on the SAP side. So through this policy in entry, you can actually prove to the auditor that you've covered this, and yeah, you have a trail to enforce this.
Yeah. So basically, in this, like in the middle of the slide, there was the security and compliance monitor module from SecurityBridge, and with Microsoft Entra ID and Entra ID governance, you can check your compliance on a regular basis. You decide you want to check it weekly, you want to check it daily. Every entity, every organization, they have like their policy on how often they want to check the compliance. And then you want also sometimes, or most of the time, you want to detect non-compliance when it happens, because it might be a sign of a threat, might be like that there is something that you want to detect real time once this non-compliance happens. So once a critical authorization is being assigned to a user, I want to be informed about it, and at real time, so that maybe it's valid, it's went through the process, maybe it's exposing a threat to the landscape. And this is like where it comes like the event monitor of SecurityBridge, with different we call it in the SecurityBridge language listeners, event listeners, that then trigger alerts at the time this, for example, critical authorization or like privileged access is being assigned to a user. And the same also with the integration with the Microsoft Sentinel, you get also alert. Can say more, Martin, about this this part?
Yeah, that's the sweet spot of the partnership also, yeah, with SecurityBridge and between Microsoft and SecurityBridge for the SAP space, because you have two personas, or like different flavors that the customers like. Yeah? There's SAP security teams that prefer the event monitor to focus really on the SAP lens, but there are others that also want to have the SOC team be notified about this to make sure that this is looked from the enterprise-wide angle. Yeah, as in this way you can correlate then across. Is something happening in other like areas where this user is active? Is this really contained to the SAP side only? Only through this combination you actually get the enterprise-wide view, yeah, with the seam integration that SecurityBridge provides to Microsoft Sentinel for SAP.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Martin.
Good. Now, Osama, when I look through the number of participants, we see people joining us working for, very different industries. And we also know that the requirements, the regulations per industry may be very different. Now, what are the security frameworks that we should all concentrate on? Maybe let's talk a little bit about those security frameworks. Now, by the way, while we're talking, everyone should have access to a Q&A panel on the right-hand side. So whenever you got a question, something pops up in your mind, please drop us a question as well. We will try to answer the question as we go. Thank you, Osama. Moving forward to security frameworks and all the compliance requirements. Now, this is just a screenshot from what you see within SecurityBridge. What we have done is every single capability within the entire platform, whether it is security compliance, so really demanding those static controls, to real-time monitoring, to patching, to even code requirements. All of the capabilities have been mapped against various frameworks. Now, you can just read out the names of the frameworks that we support out of the box yourself. But basically what I want to underline is, together with Accenture, we've also built a framework very specific to Accenture. Maybe Osama, you also would like to, say a few words on that standard, maybe with a focus on maybe NIS2 and DORA, because these are the ones that we very often see.
Yeah, so the framework we have built is basically, as you know, like Accenture is one of the biggest partners of SAP when it comes to SAP transformations, and we wanted to make sure also that our clients get the most secure solution delivered. So we have customized a framework. You can say it as our own ITGC, where we have included the minimum vendor requirements, and then we added our expertise, like from our experts, we added a few additional controls. And for us, this is like the minimum security compliance you want to reach before going live. And this is like we integrated it successfully into all our transformations. I mean, with SecurityBridge, so it was like part of our solution to make sure that this compliance with this framework is ensured before going live.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, and then I want to talk about another side of the coin. If we're talking about a coin, so the other face of the coin. First, you have a security framework or your ITGC you want to be compliant with. You want to automate the checks, but actually you need also like this combination SecurityBridge Microsoft also first to be compliant with some of the regulations, especially if you are acting or like you are operating in some specific sectors. Here I brought like two regulatory frameworks relevant for organizations that are operating in the European Union. I brought the NIS2 regulation, where you can see like in the annex, in the technical and methodological requirements description that are linked to the Article 21.2 point B of the NIS2 regulation, that you as a relevant entity, I'm talking here about the entities that are concerned by the NIS2 regulation, that are the critical, not only now the critical, but also important sectors that are also added to the regulation, that you as a relevant entity to the NIS2 regulation, you should lay down procedures and use tools to monitor and log activities on your network and information systems to detect events. So here I'm like bringing exact text from the annex to the NIS2 regulation, and you can see there are here state information systems. So whether your SAP landscape or another IT system, everything should be covered. You should monitor your information systems to detect events, security relevant events that might have impact on your information security posture. Another addition is like this should be automated. So this to the extent feasible should be automated and then carried out continuously or in periodic intervals, subject to business capabilities.
Yeah, well, Sam, I will surely interrupt you because I'm trying to read and try to follow up on all the questions I receive either through chat or through Q&A session. There's one thing that really matches up what you're just saying here. How do you see yourself that these regulatory changes like DORA, NIS2 and SOX updates, etc., how are they shaping the way SAP customers prioritize security automations in the next 2 years?
That's a very good question. As I see it, for me, this is like one of the biggest drivers of bringing automation, or also bringing like solutions like SecurityBridge and also Microsoft Sentinel to integrate your SAP systems to your CM, to your SOC capabilities. And this is like one of the main drivers. Like most of the clients also now start reaching out to us to see like the impact of the NIS2 regulation on their compliance. What should they do to their SAP systems, to their SAP landscapes to be compliant? This is next to, of course, for me, still the biggest driver is the transformation, like moving from ECC to S4. Like now you are moving from an old system, you want to move, and you are also like transforming your business. So basically, you want also to move to a secure environment. Especially, we know all the complexity that is brought with the transformation, with all now the cloud applications that are in place, all the integration with the different other non-SAP systems.
Yeah.
And regulation for me is the second driver after the transformation.
Yeah. And I very much underline what you just said. It's not only the SAP systems that an organization needs to bring in line with regulations. It's actually a lot of systems, and SAP is just one of them. That actually, somehow relates to a number of questions that I see here popping up in the chat. Clearly, SecurityBridge has a lot of SAP native visibility, but how does that complement? And maybe Martin, that's a question I'm going to address to you, with Microsoft's broader cloud security tooling. And there's another question that actually says, why should I get SecurityBridge when I already have purview compliance monitoring. Martin, can you maybe say a few words to that?
Well, there's always customer choice. Yeah, when you're as a software platform, you support partners and SAP as a primary vendor, etc., and your own stuff. We just want to make sure that if you have something where you have specialized Intel and purpose-built stuff like SecurityBridge has, that you can bring that to Microsoft. But that doesn't mean that like products like Purview also have their their place in the market. So. And Purview, for instance, gives you asset classification and also labeling and seeing how data moves throughout your data estate. But on the SecurityBridge side, you also get the the really what's bare bones in the system and transaction changes, etc. So I believe there's space for both. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's about combining a lot of these things all together. So that gives you the depth that you would need to properly do this for SAP. But maybe it's a good time, Martin, that we move on to talk about some of the built-in Sentinel capabilities.
Exactly. Yeah. We saw before that there were already visuals in the SecurityBridge portal where there's the aim on getting a view on the hours that we wanted to save, on documentation and collecting data and having something that's continuously updated. SecurityBridge, through the latest newest integration into the Microsoft Sentinel solution for SAP, is able to bring the security audit log data, but also additional information that SecurityBridge internally compiles. And when pushed towards our solution in Sentinel, actually that activates everything that Microsoft has already done and knows about the SAP workload. And one of those features that is then activated by SecurityBridge also is our audit controls workbook. And this was initially built because there were internal requirements at Microsoft as one of the biggest SAP customers in the world. And that's why you also see the SOX control framework here at the bottom right in the red box as the default one, because that was the first one added that was relevant to Microsoft as an SAP customer. But there's also, like we saw before, NIST controls, and I will quickly show that live in the system in a bit, and the ability to add your own frameworks. So really supporting both personas, the SAP security persona focusing on SecurityBridge, but also giving it to the SOC team that looks at correlating and seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So let me switch screen for a bit.
And maybe while you're switching, I'm going to quickly talk about one of the examples, or one of the questions that I see passing by here is, when you talk about the SAP RISE environment, we know that we're already monitoring the SAP application stack, but what about if there would be an extract on, let's say, the operating system level? That information, I assume, Martin, would only be identified when you start correlating data from either one SecurityBridge, but also what you receive directly from the OS level.
Exactly, yeah. The Microsoft Security Suite comprises multiple tools. Sentinel is the SIEM product, but for the EDR space, the endpoint detection and response part, that's Defender's play. And in our security operations platform, everything then gets combined, so that you see what's happening on the operating system, you see what's happening in your Office 365, in Teams, in the SAP ecosystem activated through SecurityBridge, for instance. So where everything is then coming together. But that's a webinar I would recommend that we already recorded with Holger Hügel from SecurityBridge some time ago, where we actually shed light on the specifics of that. So. All right, so here we see the Microsoft Sentinel Content Hub, and I've just filtered for SecurityBridge. So you see their solution in here, including their connector. And through this, we fed the data so that the Microsoft Sentinel for SAP solution workbook automatically picks this up. So when you then browse for the workbooks, you will actually find the audit controls workbook in there. And then we go over here. That's what you saw on the screenshot before. It automatically lists all the systems that you have access to from the underlying database. You choose your control framework, and then you get the filter. I've filtered by the last 7 days on incident creation times. And leading to this webinar, I created 2 different types that they are listed over here. And now we'll be moving over to the reporting part, where you then see all the things that were coming in with the control ID mapped to the NIST framework. Yeah, so we have that over here. To scroll a bit back. There we go. Yeah, so the NIST control ID and family over here, from where you then see how this maps. And of course, you can imagine the most asked feature after the search bar here to find stuff was, of course, download to Excel. Yeah?
Well, what a surprise.
Yeah. Even though Osama was talking to continuous monitoring and he was always up-to-date live data, yeah, that's also why SecurityBridge is pushing data to us. So there's no polling, no queuing, etc. Just always streaming. Yeah? But of course, when customers ask export to Excel, they get export to Excel. Yeah? So now back to the presentation. And reshare from here. So now you see this workbook with some emphasis on numbers that Microsoft internally compiled, running this internally for our production systems. Yeah, so in this case, it's fed by our first-party solution, but indeed you achieve the same results when using a partner solution like SecurityBridge, who activates the downstream features also. And you can see
so,
here...
So Martin, to summarize, we're basically all drinking our own champagne here, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. That's a nice terminology, I like it. Yeah. And Microsoft achieves SOX compliance and the same speed up we're talking about, yeah? Saving the hours to prove to the auditor, here are our controls, that's how we monitor, here's the proof that it's actually happening and what are the results of them. Yeah, you see then there's incidents counted, alerts across them, and in here you see there's sensitive privileged user logged in detections, which then map accordingly to the NIST framework controls. And we do this for our 5 SOX compliance systems, and overall we use this with 15 systems that are in production across RISE and Azure. And then the team has a KPI looking at how many incidents that they actually resolved year over year.
Brilliant. And, we all know we need to do this anyway. So we better do it right and eventually also save costs at the end. We need to do it because of, following all the regulations, and they tend to change on a relatively frequent basis. We all want to avoid fines, penalties, and legal risk. That's all clear. The fact that we all already use compliance frameworks for risk management and security specific topics like role-based access, segregation of duties, etc. It all helps eventually to avoid fraud, unauthorized access, and operational disruption. All of us want to bring in that tooling to make sure that you're audit ready. And very often, and I've seen a few cases already where you actually know more than your auditor is going to ask you for. So you need to speed up that game, and eventually you will gain operational efficiency. Now, all of these are very nice, catchy statements on why you should do it, but there is one thing very concrete: it does help you. We've seen a very good case just end of last week, where we have seen a public exploit of a high severity vulnerability. And those organizations that have, for instance, their patching in order, they have a very specific process to apply high severity security nodes for SAP now. These are the organizations that also shielded, they are hardened. For them, it's not such a big risk anymore. And eventually, it's just a thing that we do see in the wild. It is a hard proof for us that all the investments that you do to follow these security frameworks, they do pay off. And so again, I would like to challenge, do you only save 60%? Eventually it's going to be a lot more because your organization is way more resilient. Now, if we look at the different capabilities, because we've been talking about threat detection where we do live monitoring, we've been talking about patching, we've been talking about vulnerability management, and there's still that component of code security. And what I personally would like to underline is you need to do all of this. It is not just cherry picking some capabilities, or not only looking at a specific software, because threat detection you can also do in combination with Microsoft Sentinel. For patch management, there will also be a number of solutions, but it is actually the true integration between all of those capability sets that will help you to build secure SAP operations. The example of patching, the high severity vulnerability for which we've seen a public exploit just last week, that was a security note that was released already close to a month ago. So if at that point in time you would have patched it, you would not have seen it even. But for customers where we know patching is a bit of a drama, and I can say probably 80% of the customers I see, there is patching depth. The fact that you directly integrate within threat detection, make that visible in Sentinel within your SOC, it is so much more efficient eventually in real time. Now, Osama, I know that you guys have a number of controls and all of these things, but could you give us a few examples maybe?
Yeah, so, and this is also like the controls, they are also linked with each other through these capabilities. So like if you are not compliant with one of control, this might result in not being compliant with the other one, and then it's like a domino effect. Like here the example of like the control says that security patches must be reviewed, tested, and implemented in a timely manner. So if you don't do that, like this, like related to patch management, if you're not compliant with that control, that means that you're going to leave vulnerability in your system, and then it comes then to not being compliant with the control related to vulnerability management. So you need to do regular vulnerability scan and document them and mitigate them. That's also like another control that then you're gonna need, you're gonna breach by not being compliant with the control related to the patch management. And then similar for code security. So you control says that your custom code must be scanned for security vulnerabilities prior to release into production. What about the dynamically generated programs? So then you have like in the threat detection part, I know that SecurityBridge has a listener in this area to monitor the dynamically generated programs for vulnerabilities. And as I said, this means that like the control framework or like the compliance with these controls are also linked with each other through these 4 capabilities. And like if you are not compliant with one control, this might result or not being compliant with other controls in the area.
Exactly, yeah. And this is where we see also the complementary part of Microsoft and SecurityBridge, where the strengths of both parties then get combined so that all 4 bubbles actually get filled completely.
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting question popping up as well in the Q&A session. Where the question is, is it even possible to integrate SAP GRC process controls with SecurityBridge for IT general control testing? Maybe Osama, that's something you could respond to.
Yeah, I think this is a good question, and we have actually a use case of that. So it is possible to do the integration with process controls with the SAP GRC process control as a product, and then you can also do your ITGC testing also in SAP process control. So it gets uses the security and compliance results from SecurityBridge, and with the integration with SAP GRC PC, you can do your ITGC testing in SAP GRC PC and get like the results on the compliance status based on what SecurityBridge SNC use cases are saying about the compliance.
Okay, very good. Now, I'm a bit of a timekeeper in this session as well, so I know we're coming up to the 45 minutes. Clearly, we all want to give everyone a bit of a time back to go to the coffee machine. Osama, can you talk us about Accenture's approach to eventually cut that compliance time?
Yeah, so I mean, like we at Accenture, we are a service provider, so we need to bring the solutions of our partners together to deliver a solution, like a common solution, integrated solution to our clients. And there is an approach. As I said, we are doing mostly. We're not auditors, so we do pre-audit checks, we do security assessments, we do health checks, and this is like how we help our clients perform or like ensure that they are first compliant with the external auditor, and then we cut the compliance time by 60%, by 90%, by 100%. It depends on the specific client use case. So first thing we start with is the planning. So what is the client wants to be, what's framework want to be compliant with? Do they want to be compliant with their own ITGC? Do they want to be compliant with some specific security infosec framework like NIST? This is the first thing we try to identify, which and then plan the scope. And from there, either we have already mapped SecurityBridge use cases to the framework, which like coming out of the box, as you showed us, Ivan, you have NIST, the ISO, but also, as I said, there are like clients who want to check compliance with their own ITGC, and then we need to do the mapping with the SecurityBridge SNC use cases. And then second thing is also customize the SNC baseline. So we deep dive into the company or the organization own policies. For example, very straightforward example is the password policy. So from an organization to another, there might be some, they are defining the password minimum length as 14. Other organization is defining as 15, other is as 16, and we need to make sure that we are checking against what is stated in the organization policy. So we do this customization in the SNC baseline, and then we move to the next step, which is to check actual scan to identify non-compliances. And then also comes like our work also, like as a consultancy company, we need, so SecurityBridge and Microsoft, they're gonna give us the results, and we need to interpret them, put them in context. This is like where we do the analysis of the findings, and we conduct, for example, interviews, workshops with the relevant stakeholders, with the basis team, with the development team, with the identity and access management team, to put those findings in context, validate them, make sure that this is like exactly what they are expecting, or maybe they have like a compensating control that we were not aware of, and this like changes actually the game about the compliance. And then after doing this check work, we move to the implementation. So this like also one of the good things that we are not auditors, so we are also allowed to help our clients implementing the measures or the controls, or to close the gap identified through the check phase. We do that based on a risk-based approach, and we also have a good help there also from SecurityBridge, giving an orientation about the exploitation risk and the resolution complexity of each of the non-compliances or of the issues. So we try always to tackle, as we say, the low-hanging fruits, the ones that have a resolution complexity as low, but of course the exploitation risk as high. So we focus on that, start with them, and then move to the next. And
yeah,
of course,
but eventually, well, what you're saying is, you've got an audit report, it has an outcome. At the end, it should result in an action plan on which you also should action. So otherwise, you're going to have the same report again the next time you run through your audit.
Exactly. So usually, I mean, at the end of each of our pre-audit checks, we deliver a roadmap. The roadmap is like high level, stating which areas and also which measures control you want to implement first. As I said, based on this risk-based approach, of course, to tackle first the findings with like the high exploitation risk with low resolution complexity. So at the end, you have a roadmap, and you need to follow this roadmap to resolve or like to be compliant with the controls that we checked. And this is also helps actually our clients, even if they didn't close the gap before the external auditor come, they have a roadmap, they have a plan, and this also helps a lot with the audit, even if you don't manage to close all the non-compliances before the external audit is showing at your door and checking again and finding again the same or like fewer non-compliances.
Good. Now, clearly, we're coming up to the hour, and one thing that I could say from my side, and I'm pretty sure that also Martin would agree to it, both Microsoft and SecurityBridge, we all have the same target. We want to simplify the way to run these assessments, to do these audits. So the time that you would need to get all the information to digest everything out of that complex beast that is called SAP, that's the time that we will be shortening. Whether you're using a Microsoft UI or a SecurityBridge UI, as Martin in the beginning said, we will have different audience to deal with. So sometimes we see it's the SAP team that's responsible. Sometimes we see it's the IT team or the security team that really has that responsibility. But we want to keep it as digestible as possible so it becomes reproducible. No, indeed, you already see it. Don't wait for your next audit. So you basically have all the means there to shorten the time to become audit compliant. Behind that little guy with the disaster face, you see that clock. Martin, I still remember when you said we can save 2,000 hours, which is quite a bit. So I don't think there is an excuse anymore to time is not a reason anymore. Martin, any concluding words from your side?
No, I like it. Let's get those hours back to people, and they actually translate into cost saved. Yeah, so that's a good finding, I believe. Yeah.
Good. Osama, anything left from your side?
Yeah, I also want to add to your words about saving the hours. Automation is gonna save you hours, but automation with the right tools is gonna save you even more. I had also other tools with I would say, less user experience friendly, and that also doesn't save you as much hours as when you have the right tools with the right user experience friendly interface, or more, let's say, straightforward processes or controls. And yeah, this is also addition to the automation can save you also more hours.
We'll take that as a very big compliment. Now, if there's anyone in the call that wants to reach out to either Martin, Osama, or myself, you will find directly our email addresses here. There's a funky QR code, so do not hesitate to reach out. I'm aware that we've not been able to answer every single question. I've received some questions through private messages. I've received questions here in the Q&A panel. We will go through those questions, and we will try to also reach out directly to make sure that you do have your answer. There was one important question that said, can we have the deck shared? So what we will do shortly after, we will make this recording available, and we will also provide access to the actual deck. So with that said, I do give everyone sufficient time, again, to go back to your coffee machine and do enjoy your day, and thanks for attending. Thank you all.
Thank you for attending. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Ivan.